Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, I'm going to be showing you Zygarde. Ladies and gentlemen, we saw a new Zygarde earlier, and I told you fairly confidently, I made a confident prediction, that was going to make Zygarde really, really good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it appears to have gone and made Zygarde really, really good. I have a lovely deck list to show you that's gone and done some winning in Japan. So let's get into it, shall we? And this may shock you. This may surprise you. It is all built around Zygarde. Now, the key Zygarde here is the one which is going to be coming out soon. It's just come out over in Japan. Now, this particular Zygarde is really all about the ability. Now, this is actually going to be in Unified Minds, our August set, about which I gave you some information just earlier today. It's not going to be an Unbroken Bond. You're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. And this Zygarde has an ability which says that all of your Zygarde do an extra 20 damage, as long as this Zygarde is on the bench. Now, the thing is, there are a couple of issues with this. Firstly, this has to be on the bench to do the extra damage, and secondly, it's called Zygarde, which means as soon as this is on the bench, you've got to have another Zygarde in the active, so you can only have 3 bench Zygarde with 1 Zygarde in the active attacking, which is a bit of a pain because you can only add 60 damage, not 80, but even then, you've got to get the attacking Zygarde back every single turn, while the 3 Zygarde that are boosting your attacks are sitting on the bench. Kind of like how with Persimmon, you could play 3 of the boosting Persimmon, but then you'd have to keep getting the Sun and Moon Persimmon back over and over and over and over again. That's a little bit of a pain. The second problem is that this is a fighting type, and many of these Zygarde are fighting type, which means you can use Diancie Prism Star to do an extra 20 damage, but that doesn't work for the Dragon type Zygarde, of which there are a couple. So what we really need in order for this to work, what we really need is a fighting type Zygarde that isn't actually called Zygarde. Well, the good news is we got Zygarde GX. It's not called Zygarde, it's called Zygarde GX, and it is a fighting type, which means you can have 4 of these Zygarde on the bench, and you can have a Diancie Prism Star on the bench, and you can be adding 100 damage to your attack. Now, that does bring in all kinds of issues in that you've then got 5 support Pokemon, so you do have to get your Zygarde GX back every turn. Bit of a pain. And also it means that you cannot have any other Pokemon on your bench, though you generally don't really want to. But you always need 5 Pokemon adding 20 damage each to your attacks. But you've now got the option. We're kind of in the perfect situation. Now, there is an attack on the new Zygarde. You do 20 damage, and you attach an energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, a fighting energy. And look, with 3 other Zygarde and a Diancie on the bench, this does do 100 damage while attaching an energy. It's not a terrible attack. I mean, you add a Choice Band on there, you're still getting a 1-hit KO on a Pikarom for a single energy while accelerating energy. That's not exactly a terrible position to be in. But the main attacker here is your Zygarde GX, and like I've said, we're really taking advantage of the fact that Zygarde and Zygarde GX have different names. Double colourless energy, 50 damage, and you attach 2 fighting energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. But remember, with a Choice Band and all the other 5, that's actually 180 damage, while accelerating 2 energy to itself. That's pretty gosh darned ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. And then you have the second attack. The second attack here is absolutely great. It does 130 damage for 4 energy. Now, generally speaking, that's not good. But of course, once you're adding potentially 100 damage, so you're doing 230 to 60 with a Choice Band, and you're accelerating energy yourself with a first attack, now we're cool. It should be too expensive while not doing quite enough damage, but the first attack gets the energy on there, and all the other stuff we're talking about does the extra damage, and now all of a sudden it's actually a legitimately viable attack. And then we've even got the GX attack here, 150 damage, and it is immune to EXs and GXs, or at least damage from them, the following turn. But again, it's 150 before you add all of the extra stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, this is really, really good here. This works absolutely beautifully. And we're also playing a couple of Bonnie so that we can use that GX attack again. You see, Bonnie's got kind of a weirdly specific use. It just lets you use Zygarde GX's GX attack again. That is what it does. That is the only thing that it does. But given that you're playing a deck that relies on Zygarde, yeah, cool. And now you can potentially have multiple turns of immunity from attacks, or damage from attacks, from EX and GX Pokemon. This is absolutely wonderful. And that is largely the deck. That is what we're going for here. Spam Zygarde and Diancie onto the bench, smash with Zygarde GX, use new Zygarde as a non-GX attacker. In terms of other Pokemon, we do obviously play one Diancie Prism Star, we've talked about that quite a bit. And we play a single copy of Tapu Lele, and we cross our fingers and hope that we never have to use it. We don't want it on the bench. If Tapu Lele hits the bench, that is one fewer Pokemon we've got on the bench doing an extra 20 damage. We don't like it. But sometimes you just need to grab a supporter. And you may end up using this to grab that Bonnie that wins you the game, or you might need it in the early game to get set up, etc. You've got to kind of play one of these. Just really hope you don't start with it, because if you start with it, you don't get the ability, but it's still taking up a bench space, and that is basically the worst case scenario. That is, as I like to phrase it, bad news bears. Now, in terms of the energy, we're playing 4 double colorless because that's what Zygarde wants, and then we're playing a bunch of basic fighting energy because, well, it's a fighting deck. Basic fighting is good. Now, in terms of the trainer line here, we're actually playing 3 different stadiums, which you don't see very often. But we got Brooklet Hill, which lets you search out your basic fighting Pokemon, which is everything except your Tapu Lele. We've then got 2 copies of Fighting Dojo. If you've got basic fighting attached, you do an extra 10 damage. If you're behind on prizes, you do an extra 40. And bearing in mind, we're already getting up to pretty good numbers just using Zygarde and Diancie. This could really put you over the top beautifully here. And then we're playing 1 copy of Unmanned Power Plant, because Unmanned Power Plant turns off the abilities of EX and GX Pokemon. And yeah, sure, you're playing 1 Tapu Lele, but then that's it. As soon as you're done, you're done. But you can stop your opponent playing Tapu Lele. You can stop your opponent using something like Zoroark's ability. To be fair, you shouldn't worry too much about that with the weakness. You should be smashing Zoroark just using the non-GX Zygarde. But the point here is, you've got 3 different stadiums. If you really want to do the extra damage and you're behind on prizes, Fighting Dojo. In the early game to get set up, Brooklet Hill. And if your opponent is using EX and GX abilities, Unmanned Power Station. And sure, you're only playing 1 and you won't always get to use it, but sometimes you will. Now, in terms of the supporter line here, we're playing 4 Lily and 2 Cynthia. These are the best draw cards we've got. These are the draw cards we see in every deck. They are the cards that we use to give ourselves a card advantage. Pretty much as simple as that. We've already mentioned Bonnie, so we don't need to go into that again. We got 2 copies of Guzma, Dragon Pokemon Active, and a Switch, it's pretty good. And 1 copy of Red's Challenge. It's computer search as a supporter. Discard 2 cards from your hand, search your deck for any 1 card. Really, really useful to get that single card that you really, really want here. Whether that is your 1 copy of Unmanned Power Station, or whether that's a double colorless energy, whatever it might be, it's got your back. Now, in terms of the item cards here, we got 4 copies of Pokegear 3.0. This just gives you that consistency to search out your supporters, especially Red's Challenge, which is the best way to find the double colorless energy, which you really need for Zygarde, and Bonnie. When you need double colorless energy, Red's Challenge can win you the game, or stop you losing the game depending on where we are. Similarly, dropping a Bonnie at the right turn can win you the game, not dropping it at the right turn can lose you the game. That's where Pokegear 3.0 comes in. 4 copies of Ultra Ball, because it gets all your Pokemon. If it wasn't for Tapu Lele, we could just use Nest Ball, but it doesn't give you Tapu Lele's ability. But remember, both the Zygarde accelerate energy from the discard pile, so we actually want to discard here. So these are really good, and we would much rather have it over Nest Ball, even if we weren't playing Tapu Lele. 2 Rescue Stretcher. This is really important because there will be turns where you lose your Zygarde and you haven't got one on the bench ready to go because you don't want to not have Pokemon on the bench that do an extra 20 damage. Remember, there are 5 of them, so ideally Zygarde GX in the active, 4 Zygarde Diancie on the bench, so you will sometimes need to emergency get them back. That's where Rescue Stretcher comes in. 2 copies of Switch to get Pokemon out of the active, 2 copies of Choice Band to do a bit of extra damage, 1 copy of Nest Ball, because we can't play 4 Ultra Ball. I explained earlier in the video, just about a minute ago, that Ultra Ball's better than Nest Ball. Yes, it is. I stand by that. But you know what? You can only play 4 of them. Nest Ball helps you out. 1 copy of Field Blower to get rid of your opponent's tools and stadiums. 2 copies of Energy Lotto. It doesn't guarantee you get the double colorless energy. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find an energy, put it in your hand. But double colorless is crucial here because you cannot single energy attack with Zygarde GX. You can with the other Zygarde, but not with the GX. Double colorless energy is crucial. This helps you find it. 2 copies of Acrobite, just to give you that little bit of extra added consistency and speed, while also potentially discarding an energy, which, as we've discussed, you want. And then finally, 2 copies of Black Belt. If you're behind on prizes, it reduces the attack cost of the Pokemon it's attached to by 1 fighting energy. It means that Zygarde attacks for free, and Zygarde GX attacks for 2 colorless, 1 fighting energy. It will not help with Zygarde's first attack, but it will really help out with non-GX Zygarde. So if you are behind on prizes, Black Belt and Fighting Dojo, they've got your back. I love this deck. This deck is so much fun, and I think we're going to keep seeing this. What we have here is basic Pokemon, single energy, huge damage, and just not much. You don't need to worry too much. It's quite a straightforward deck. You get your Pokemon out, you smash with Zygarde GX. It's fun, ladies and gentlemen. And I really don't think this is going to be the last we see of it. But I would very much like to know what you think about it. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.